Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. This is a Lunch and Learn brought to you by Home Haven, and I'm Lori Lowell. I'm the Executive Director of Home Haven, and I'm here with Kate Hay, our Operations Manager, and many of our members. And I'm happy to introduce to you Harriet Bergmann, who's going to talk to you about creative writing. Harriet, as many know, runs 4 memoir writing groups for Home Haven, and she has done so for many, many years. And I'm happy to share that she has a couple of openings. So if after this program you're interested in a memoir writing group, please contact Harriet, and her information is in the newsletter. So a little background about Harriet Bergmann. She has taught English and writing since 1968. And she presently teaches creative writing at Yale University. She's a member of the East Rock Village, and she's actually a founding member of Home Haven. She and her husband, Hans, have been with us since the very beginning. So please, all of you, mute yourselves while Harriet's speaking, and I turn it over to you, Harriet. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. I'm coming through loud and clear?
Yep.
Good. If you have a question, if you can just do that, just hold your hand up near your mirror and I'll see it. I'm not used to lecturing and I don't want this to be a lecture. So any kind of question you have, please feel free to ask. So I'm going to talk really about any kind of writing. Of course, it can easily apply to memoir writing, which I've been teaching recently. But I believe that almost any kind of writing, whether it's a report or a letter or a memoir or a paper for your history class, and fiction or nonfiction, any kind of writing will be helped, I think, by some of the things that I'm going to say. So you know that starting is the hardest part. You know, the blank page, what am I supposed to do? Put pencil to paper. Don't start with that word. You know how that is. And free writing is a little bit different from that. The theory, and I can't quite tell you whether it's true or not, is that there are obviously 2 parts of the brain. And the right brain is responsible for creativity, ideas, connect this, connect that. And the left brain is for logical thinking. The way this manifests itself is the left brain says, you shouldn't have put that word there. And I think you need a semicolon. And nah, that's not what you meant to say. And this is not what you want when you're creating, especially when you're creating writing. So what you want to do is to override that very judgmental part of your brain and make it stay away. You will need it, obviously, at some point, but not quite yet. You got to tell me if I'm going too fast. I tend to do that. So if you do that override, in order to do that override, free writing is a way to accomplish it. Free writing says that the only rule is you put pen or pencil to paper and you keep writing. You don't have to go fast and certainly worry about not pressing too hard, but you cannot stop. So you might be writing along and saying, this is really stupid. I don't know what I'm doing. I wish she would go away. But you keep writing. So you write those things down. You don't stop. Somebody just wrote to me and said, has the meeting started? You don't stop. You don't search for a word. You don't wonder whether your punctuation is right. any of those things. You simply have to keep writing. It sounds like it might not be too difficult. So I'm going to actually have you experiment with this. The time, 4 minutes is a little too long, too short. 6 minutes is about right. I will time you. Don't look at the clock. Don't worry about how many minutes have passed. Just do it. Now, one of the things I often do, I'm just checking that I've said all of these things. One of the things I often do is to give a class a prompt. And
Yes, that's very helpful.
good, good. I will give you a prompt, but you don't have to take it. You don't have to be prompted. You can write anything you want. You could write a string of very bad words. You could write literally anything, because nobody is ever going to see this if you don't want them to. We can finish the whole little experiment. You can ball up the piece of paper and throw it away. You could burn it if you wanted to. Nobody will see it except you. And it might be helpful to you, it might not, but you can only determine that once you've, tried the whole process. So, does everybody have pencil and paper and something to lean something to lean on so that you don't get tired? Remember, one of the things that can happen is you think I have to keep going faster and faster and faster. Don't worry about that, but you have to keep forming words. Okay? It's not as easy as it sounds, or maybe it's not as difficult as it sounds either. So, no pauses. When I ask a class to do this, I do give them a prompt. And what you need to know is that this process, when you override your inner English teacher, can lead you places that you didn't know you were going to go. I'm going to give you a prompt, but first of all, you don't have to follow it at all. And second of all, you might start following it and you might say, oh, you might just start going somewhere else. Go there. As I say, punctuation doesn't matter. Capital letters don't matter. In anything of that sort. You're just overriding it all and you are writing and not stopping. And that's really the only rule. It can take you someplace. And I will tell you, a couple of people might have heard this, a story of a kid in one of my classes. And the prompt I gave was write about your father and all the things you liked about your father. And they started writing. And about halfway through the 6 or 7 minutes, I said, write about the things you don't like about your father. They thought for a second, and then they kept on writing. And there was a kid at the back of the room who went like this. He couldn't do it. And he couldn't do it because there's a way in which this can be an emotional process. You might be getting someplace that you didn't know you wanted to go, and you're going there and you don't really want to go there. You can stop, but you can't stop writing, but you don't have to go there. Or you can say, okay, nobody's ever going to see this. I'm going to say exactly what I really feel and do that. So, I will give you a prompt and you will start. I'll give you the prompt. You can think for maybe 30 seconds, maybe less. and then I'll ask you to start. Okay? Everybody feel ready to do this? Okay. The prompt is, think about the kitchen in the house in which you grew up. Go there. Okay, start. You may stop if you want to, but keep going if you want to. Okay. Jean, you must be very puzzled about what.
It took me a while to catch on, but you gave them a writing assignment.
Yes. Tell me how that was. Excuse me. Yes, Sean.
Well, for me, it was very easy because as one of the memoir groups, when I come up with a topic, which for me is the most difficult task, if once I have my topic, I work in this way.
Mhm.
Whether I learned that from you or whether
You
it's
might have.
just, I probably did. I've been taking your class for a couple of years now. And I just start writing and it comes out pretty much fully formed. I don't edit that much at the end until I start typing. I always write in a notebook with a spiral notebook with a pen, sitting on the couch with my feet up. And I have a little portable writing desk in my lap,
Good, good.
which I put the notebook and a cup of tea.
Anybody else tell me about, or tell us all? Nancy, what was it like?
I found it absolutely amazing because I always now write on the computer, and I'm usually writing emails or I'm writing review articles or papers or notes to people, and I'm never doing any creative writing. And I used to write poetry, but when I did, it was always a little bit stilted. And I found this an amazing an amazing exercise and a very strange look back in time, I must say. I found it a little disturbing. The
Good.
things
Good.
the things that came out.
Oh,
Harriet, was this free writing or brain
Yes.
dump?
Yes, it
Okay.
was.
Thank you.
Other people? Cindy? You're muted, Cindy. No, still muted. I don't think I can unmute you. Why don't you wait and we'll hear from somebody else for a minute. Cindy, we're not hearing you. Jean.
I had a choice to make with the very good topic that you gave us because my family moved frequently when I was growing up. So I settled on the first kitchen I could remember.
Uh-huh.
It was when I was 3 or 4. I guess 4. Had a table with chairs gathered around it and 2 high chairs. My parents had their children close together.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
And that's the main thing I remember about that kitchen.
Oh,
And I
good.
enjoyed writing about it. I've never done that before. But by now, having been in the memoir group for a while, I'm comfortable with writing in this way. And I owe it all to you, Harriet. It was the thing that made me hesitate to join a memoir group. I didn't think I would be able to write because of exactly what you talked about. I would write a sentence and think, no, that's not
Blank
a very
page.
powerful sentence.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not good.
And I stopped that. It was
Well,
easy
good.
once you
Good.
said 7 minutes, and that's so thank you.
Okay. Other people have something about this.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I thought it was easy, but I had something in the back of my mind that I'm sort of carrying around with me since yesterday. Anyway, thinking about, this group and what is memoir writing about. And so it just, kitchen is such an amazingly evocative word. Could be good, could be bad, could be frightening, could be happy. So it was just easy to sort of scribble this out. It was fun. It was fun. It was fun.
Easy is always good. Okay.
I agree. It was freeing. But I came at it from a different background. I'm not in your memoir group, but now maybe I should do more free writing. But I still had that editor in the back of my head. I had come at it from poetry classes, and so I thought of all the sensory imagery I should be putting in there, So I walked in, and this was not my first kitchen, but it was a kitchen I grew up in the most years. So of course you walk in, I felt the smells, but then I thought, oh, I better talk about how it looks now. And where is my mother? Why isn't she here?
So you were having some trouble overriding your.
I was having trouble overriding.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that can happen, and you just have to push. You keep writing.
I wrote like crazy.
Good.
So I have to do more of this to free up some more.
Mhm.
I thought it was so freeing because I wrote about a particular memory, which was I didn't just recall it as a memory I've had for many years, but just writing it without worrying whether the sentence was coming to an end or not, and just went on with about how I remembered it and how I felt and all of that. I thought it was just an amazing little exercise.
Good. Has any of you ever done it before? Done this kind of thing?
No.
The goal, Terry?
I have a couple of things to say. I have something else because I'm in your memoir group I've been burning to write, which is the next part of my childhood. So as much as I liked your prompt, what I wanted to write was something else. So I wrote the something else. And the other thing is I typically write on the computer. So although I don't mind it, but my hand gets a little tired.
Yeah.
So that was interesting, but it made me think I will have to include something about the kitchen somewhere. Because there's certainly a lot to say about the kitchen.
Well, it is hard not to have your hand tense up. On the other hand, I have tried to do this on the computer, even by, covering up the screen. And it for me, it doesn't work as well. It's not as freeing. If one way that you might deal with it, and we're going to talk about editing in a minute, is to actually transcribe what you've written longhand onto the computer, and then you might.
I just think better on the computer I can type pretty fast, and there was something else I wanted to say, and I too had moved so many times until I was 10, so the kitchen that I would describe would be from 10 on. Isn't that funny? Because we moved every year, and it's kind of like, where is my kitchen? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you in some part you discovered that, and in some part you had to deal with it, and in some part you just go wherever it takes you.
Exactly.
One of the goals, that saying, how do you carve a statue of an elephant? You get a big piece of marble and you take away everything that isn't elephant, right? So you've got a big pile of words, and the editing part then is to take away everything that isn't what you want, or to shape it differently, or put it in exactly the way you want it. And then it becomes the thing you finally want.
I found the most interesting thing was how freer I felt handwriting it, just writing, than when I'm on the computer.
That's
I
interesting.
just,
I
I
agree.
just, there's just something about seeing a word printed, which makes it so solid. Whereas if you're just writing it and you can scratch it out, you don't care
That's
if
really
you're spelling
true.
it. I found that utterly liberating.
Oh,
Really
wonderful.
true.
And I haven't done handwriting, done any
Right.
writing by handwritten. I
Right.
don't remember. I mean, it's all been on the computer.
Yeah.
And so I found this just, an amazing insight for
Okay.
me.
Good.
Okay,
Okay,
Harriet,
Harry.
I do a lot of scholarly writing. That's most of the writing I do, and I always do it on the computer. But I often find that if I get stuck in something I'm trying to write, that it frees me up to go to that yellow pad.
So you've
and
done this. Uh-huh.
I do a lot of I do a lot of outlining on my yellow pad. If there's something I'm trying to write, and I'm stuck on the computer, I'll go to the yellow pad. I feel very comfortable and happy with my yellow pad.
Oh, good. Good.
And the other thing that I discovered very early on, two things. Number one, that's really good about the computer is that I found that a computer screen gives me a good paragraph length. And so if I have exceeded that screen, I know that my paragraph is too long and I need to shorten it. That's the one thing I learned early on. The other thing I learned early on was similar to what you were saying about this process, and that is that but for scholarly writing, I thought I learned early on not to write any footnotes as I was going on, and
Sure.
to just skip by them. If there's some detail that I didn't want to put in the body, and it was going to go in a footnote, I said, no, you're going to do that later. You're just going to keep going, and that helped me a lot.
Yeah, that is good. Yes, scholarly writing is different from this, but when you know in your head that you've got a bunch of stuff to dump on the page and you haven't decided, then free writing can help you with that too.
Yeah, yeah.
Terry.
Harriet, I had a
Can I
question. I thought I had, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
ahead.
Are we supposed to raise our hand if we
Yes,
want?
if you can just go, put your hand. Yeah. Okay, Terry.
One
No.
other thought that I was going to add was that with this memoir group, I found I've been by hand writing topics that I want to write about. And then within that topic, kind of bullet points. And that has helped me kind of organize my thought when I start on the computer.
Right, right. Anna?
Yes, I find something quite helpful when I have written my memoir, and I think it seems okay, and I start editing, looking at it, to read it out loud to yourself.
I'm going to talk about that in a minute.
And
Don't steal my thunder. I will talk
then
about
you can
yes.
you know how it needs extra work.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to
Good.
looks
Hans,
okay.
were you going to say something, Hans?
Yeah.
Yes. What?
I thought you weren't going to call on me.
Yeah, I know. Mr. Bergman?
I was also struck by something that I didn't expect, which is I have in my head the assumption that lots of good detail is essential to good writing. And I assumed incorrectly that free writing of this kind would skim over detail. But in fact, as I got going, I started to find detail in the scenes I was imagining, not imagining, remembering, and that it was easier to find good detail during this process.
Huh,
And that's the opposite of what I thought would happen.
yeah, yeah. That is interesting. Jean,
I was curious, Harry, would you call free writing one of several writing styles, or more of an exercise to loosen people up when they write, or both maybe?
I don't see it as a style because I'm asking you precisely not to make the corrections or the changes, the edits that would make it into the style that is your personal style. So it's, well, as I say, it's, you want to get a big lump of words and then you can, then you make style.
So it goes with editing.
Yeah, I
Right.
think so. I
Okay.
think so. And we could talk a little about editing unless somebody wants to say more about the experience itself. I don't know what that was. Um,
So
so, as I think it was Hannah said, yes, starting off by reading it aloud is like nothing else. You hear it, you see where, you know, you had to change that. And if you make notes at the same time that you're reading it aloud, then you can see the direction that some of the things ought to go in. And so I think reading it aloud is terrific. If there's somebody around to whom you can read it or who can read it for you, that's great. And you'll know, reading it aloud, you'll hear it, you'll know where you might want to go with some of it after that. But it's a good way to start out. You might simply want to rewrite it to make it legible because it might not be very legible. You might want to type it up and put it on the computer. And I think that that's fine after you've done the exercise. You might also want to note or highlight the kinds of tangents that you might go into later. In other words, if it took you off, let's say the exercise of the prompt with the kitchen, it could have taken you to food, it could have taken you to your mother or your father or the physical space or exactly how you felt about the napkin that you always used, any of those kinds of things. And if those were there, but you didn't keep on going with them, those are ways to make the thing bigger. Those are things that you will need to exercise, to embroider on, to change. And, you know, all of that is good. I didn't realize that there were going to be so many of the memoirs here. And of course, a lot of these ideas are perfect for writing a memoir, but you can use them for a scholarly paper too, I think. They're not terrible for that.
Actually,
Yeah, John.
I was disappointed in myself in a sense, because I had something I wanted to write about. And when you said nobody would see it, I thought it would be an opportunity for me to write about some uncomfortable things in my family.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got tempted by the kitchen, and I had this kind of cross currents.
Uh-huh.
So I'll have to find another time where I'm not afraid to write about the things that I was going to use this exercise to write about.
Well, this is a nice segue into another aspect of this, which is that, first of all, it might take you someplace that you don't want to go, like my student who did not want to talk about the reasons he didn't like his father. And those tangents you can put aside. You can, as you're doing your free writing, you can write, you know, tangent food and not even go there right then, but you know that you might want to use that later.
Okay.
So make sure that you you haven't ignored it, but at the same time, you don't have to go there at that moment if you don't want to. and whatever those tangents are might be a whole, other piece of writing at some point. Part of this also has to do with the question of audience. And my belief absolutely is that you are always your first audience. So there's almost no way for you not to look critically at this thing, to excuse me, to see what you're saying, and eventually in the editing time want to correct it, want to change it, and at that moment, for the memoirists, I know it has been a matter of, oh, I'm writing for my children or for my grandchildren or for any kind of posterity you want to put this down for. And that's obviously true, but you are also writing for yourself. And one of the things that writing can help you do is to order things.
Yes.
You can see an event or a place or a person, and by writing and then editing, you put not in chronological order necessarily, not in any kind of necessary order, but it orders it in your mind and on your page. So that's, I think, an important aspect of it. The other, let me think of where I want to go with editing. The next parts of editing are the sort of drudge work parts. You want to, and you probably have known this in any kind of writing that you do. You want to see what you've said, and who is it who says that? I don't know what to say until I see what I think, something like that. And of course, you've got this pile of words, and so you want to see where they are going, and then eventually you're going to want to make some kind of order out of them. And as you say, there were places you didn't quite want to go, and for example, there are things that you might not want to commit to paper. You don't want to see them written out. In all of the times that the memoir groups have met, and we've been going, I don't know, 5 or 7 years, the earliest one, nobody, well, one person, I think, has written about the time he or she lost their virginity. There was a time it happened, I think, probably for all of us. So writing is never the truth. It always approximates truth. It might tell a fact or two, but the truth, is not there. One of the things I often do in starting something like this is to talk about first lines of novels. And of course, my favorite first line, having taught American literature these many years, is "Call me Ishmael," the first 3 words of Moby Dick. Well, what does that mean? Is Ishmael your real name? Do you think I'm going to address you? It's a nickname? Call me Ishmael? Ishmael's from the Bible. Are you from the Bible? You can go any place with that. So truth is not something that's down there on the paper. For your own purposes, you may want to get as close to the truth as possible, but to the extent to which you are aware of an audience, that's a bunch of decisions that you make, very much so. So let me talk sort of briefly about editing.
About what?
About editing. I'm going to share screen. Do you see this piece of prose?
Yes.
Yeah.
You read it to yourself.
Horrible.
Where did you get this?
I wrote it myself. I wrote it. And then I sort of edited it. And what I came up with,
Yeah,
waste
run
not,
it
want
down
not.
again.
Oh,
Run
dear.
it down again. I didn't quite finish.
Well, oh, okay. Well, here it is again. I'm not even sure it's any good, but it
It was
does,
slow
I
going. Slow
think,
going.
yes, slow going. And I think it kind of, well, it can show you all of those extraneous words. Now, waste not, want not is really nice and really concise, but it tells you what you need to know. Much better than this, I think. So, so editing, one of the things about editing is to take away the stuff that isn't elephant. And one of the basic ways to do that is take away verbs, forms of to be. Don't start sentences with there is, little things that are like that. When I do that sort of thing, for myself, I use the reviewing program in Word just so that I can see the changes I've made and not lose anything, because who knows when you might need it. So active voice versus passive voice.
Right.
Passive voice can seem very handy. I will give you an example from somebody who's here, as a matter of fact, who had a medical problem and was reading the description of the small operation, which said, during the operation, a nerve was inadvertently transected.
That doesn't sound good.
By magic.
It wasn't good. But
Nobody did it. Nobody did it.
Nobody did it. The use of the passive is so amazing there because nobody did it. There is no agency.
It
Passive,
just happened to the nerve.
yes. Inadvertently. Yeah, it was inadvertent on somebody's part.
Did it come back? I wonder.
No.
Not quite, no.
No.
Don't look at my face now.
It's just the passive is so useful for avoiding things.
Yes.
For lack of attribution, and anybody could have done that.
Sue me.
Yeah, but nobody is responsible at all. So in part, the other part of this is diction, is your choice of words. And in that piece that I wrote to be not waste, not want, not, I looked for as many circumlocutions as I possibly could find, ways of talking around things that in which you never come to the point. Recently, I got a piece of email that I was pretty sure was spam, and I went to Google and I Googled, it was motleyamuse.com. No idea. I go to that website, and it is a website, and it's very fancy, and there are a couple of sentences, and they say nothing. There is no content to them whatsoever. So I threw the email in the spam trash, and it's possible to not say anything. So
That's what politicians are very good at.
yes. So diction is your choice of words. They can be fancy words. They can be very abrupt words. It's not as if choosing a long word is wrong. It's just your notion of who your audience is and what kinds of language that audience will be comfortable with, will understand. Carrie and Nancy, when they write their academic papers, they know what another scholar is going to understand. And they know whether they can put that in or not. And they know whether they can rely on that. And that's a question of diction. That's the words that you use. I think I've said almost everything I can think of to say, although no, being an English teacher, I could go on and on and on. So more questions, more ideas, more thoughts about the process. Jean.
Interesting to hear you talk about editing. I've done a lot of it because I've taught at the business school at Quinnipiac and had lots of student papers, but not just from American students, from foreign students. So their use of English is actually, they're really pretty good when they get here. You can't do a graduate education degree without pretty decent English. But I found it very challenging to kind of keep in mind my audience on each paper because they were all so different from one another. But my point in bringing that up is I don't think it's helped my personal flow of writing of my own because I'm always editing. I'm always looking to shape it down.
Of course.
Right.
And it's like two different forces warring in my head when I think about writing.
Well, that's the right brain, left brain thing. And that is the reason that free writing can at least be an attempt to override that critic that's lodged in your brain.
I think I'm going to try more of that because I think that might be a help.
You came in a little late on my explanation.
Yes. Sorry.
But basically what everybody did was write for, I timed it at 6 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave a prompt, and the rule is you just keep writing. Did anybody have difficulty actually keeping on going?
No.
No, it worked. It was okay. Good.
It's like having permission to ramble in your head.
Yes,
Yes.
that's right.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to talk about it. Nancy.
I just love this exercise, and I am now going to try to do a little bit more free writing for my academic work, because sometimes I just get stuck and I just start just throwing words out and saying things that, to try to keep going. And I think this would be a wonderful exercise to just step back and do a little bit of free writing and then get back to it.
Yeah.
Could you say a few words, although so many people in the group today are in the memoir group, but for those of us who aren't, how it works? I mean, do you do a lot of this sort of free writing, or what is a session like?
Everybody brings a piece of writing that is complete. We don't actually do any writing in the group. The group each time meets for an hour and a half, and 2 people read. And that's another one of those situations in which reading it aloud is a way. Everybody will have read it online, but they also, when you hear it, it's just not the same. And for the writer, it's not the same either. So I think reading it aloud is important. And then we talk, and none of the groups has devolved into a criticism, that paragraph goes on to that. Nothing like that. We generally talk about the content of the piece and what has been said and what you might want to know more about, or very often what ideas have been evoked in the listeners.
Do you throw for the work that they then bring? Are they the result of a prompt from you, or they can choose anything they want?
No, people choose anything they want. And sometimes people, and sometimes it's more episodic. Sometimes I was born on, such and such a date. So it's very different. I'm the oldest of 5 children, and We're not children anymore. And I thought it would be interesting for us to do a joint kind of memoir. And that's where the idea of the room came from, because I said, okay, do the kitchen, and everybody did a little memory of the kitchen, and do the study, do the backyard, and everybody had a slightly, and then people commented on each other's, so that the final document that I'm working with right now has, I'm in black and Neil's in blue and Nancy's in green and Robbie's, it goes like that. So you can read it as a kind of a conversation also. But it's worked pretty well, and it has worked with this idea of, just a little prompt, a little something. Lori?
Can you say something about writing to a word count? Like, let's say that you're writing something and you only have room for 400 words. So do you just write way more than that and then cut it back, or what's the best way to deal with it?
Well, don't stop yourself at the beginning. So big piece of marble, however much comes out. So free writing, I mean, it's a lousy little 6 minutes. It didn't take you very long to do it. And even if it's a memo or a technical piece, or, a piece of writing for the newsletter, that kind of thing, free writing can get you there so much faster in a way. It doesn't take very long, and you can see where you go. It gives you permission. You've got to cut it down. You only have room for 400 words. And the editing will get you there. And, if you've got a good friend who can help you edit, that's always useful. But don't stop yourself the first time around, the first draft. That's,
Thank you.
Nancy?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think you've been doing the memoir group longer than 5 or 6 years, because my late husband was in it, and he died 10 years ago. And he liked it very much. He didn't finish, unfortunately, but you've been at it a little bit longer than you think you have.
I guess so. Well, and they multiplied sort of slowly over the years too. But yes, being home haven, the worst thing is that people die out of the groups.
Right.
Right.
I just want to make a little pitch. The newsletter now has a new column, and it's called From Where I Sit. And it is meant to be this kind of first person writing, an essay. It could be a story, it could be something that you think about, concerns, whatever, but we are asking that it be first person. So that we can hear the voice of the member who's writing. And so far we have published 3 of them. Harriet wrote one, and our president wrote one, and Joan Prum, and we have one coming up in the upcoming issue. But I want to encourage you to write. They're meant to be only 350 words, so it's almost a little snippet. It's not a big essay. It's a modest sharing. And the reason that this was actually an idea that I had, and the reason I'm introducing this into the newsletter is to help us get to know our members, is to help the members get to know each other. And I think this kind of first person writing is a great way to do that. So that was my first pitch. I will be writing to everybody in the memoir groups, telling them, inviting them to submit 350 words. Now, that said, someone from a memoir group just submitted 650 words. And I'm going to publish it because I don't have 2. If I had 2, they would run side by side, 350 words each, but I don't have them. So we're going to go ahead with a much longer submission in the November issue of the newsletter, and I think you're going to enjoy it very much because it's very nicely written.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's really good. And then just my final pitch is just, I think most of you know this, that we are looking for a newsletter editor. And it is not a huge job. It's really a process of just collecting the articles and, you know, organizing it. And it's not an enormous amount of work, but right now it's on my shoulders and I can't continue to do it. And thank you so much to our past editors. They know who they are and they were wonderful, but we need somebody now. So just, you know, I know since all of you are here because you like to write or you want to write, it doesn't, the editor doesn't have to do much editing. You don't have to do any editing actually, because we have somebody who does that. We have a volunteer who does the editing, or you can do the editing if you'd like to. So get in touch with me. I'm sorry to interrupt with a public service announcement, but you know, I feel like I have a group here that are actually self-selected. So
Good.
thank you. Thanks.
Any other feedback? Any other places this should go? Good.
It was
Thank
wonderful.
you, Harriet. This was
Harriet, this was
you.
wonderful.
Thank you.
It's fun.
Thank you so
Very
much,
good.
Harriet. You serve the organization in such a beautiful way.
Oh,
Thank
thank you. Thank you.
very much.
Thank you, Harriet.
Yeah.
I must
Bye,
say
everyone.
that everyone who has been in our memoir group or whatever, you know, people come with an awful lot. People are well educated. They've read a lot. It's usually a high quality group of people that are writing. Not intimidatingly so, but
Thank you. Okay, we're going to end the meeting now. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you again,
Thank you.
Lori.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Thank you, Harriet.
Bye-bye.